Just a little self-introduction. My name is Hsiao Yun. I'm from ELL. I'm a visiting, yay. I'm a visiting lecturer. I joined in July. And my background is in TESOL. So I teach English language. I have been kind of playing around with ICT in my classroom for my classes since I was in my previous institution, which is the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts. But I never really sort of used it as sort of, it was never really central to my lessons, right? Okay, so I think I should explain probably what we're going to do today. So I'm first going to explain to you why I started using Edmodo in the first place, right? The rationale and everything. Then I'll sort of take you through some of the things that I do with my classes with Edmodo. I'll show you some screenshots, and I'll try and sort of give you a version to play with on your screen so that you can sort of pretend to be students and interact with whatever I've put up, right? And then after that, I'll spend a little bit of time talking about limitations, because there are limitations. And finally, I will show you some feedback from my students. Very conveniently, we are at the end of the semester, so I have feedback. And then if we have time, I'll just talk a bit about my own personal reflection after using this for the past semester. So to start with, why did I start using Edmodo? This started when I was with Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts. And there we were using Blackboard as well as kind of like semi-official LMS to interact with students. But I had a problem because whenever I put stuff up on Blackboard, nobody would go in and they would just ignore it, and I found that very frustrating. And at first I thought, okay, maybe it's because there was no notification system. Because I think on Blackboard, if you want to notify students that you have added something, you have to put up an announcement, right? Because if you just put in stuff, they're not going to know unless you tell them separately. So I found that very cumbersome. And also I got some feedback from my students that they found the Blackboard interface boring and unattractive, right? So I decided that I was going to look around and see if I can find any other alternative, right? And at that time, technology is a huge part of my life, but I've never really seriously considered using it to teach. So this, I think, was one of the first that I came across. That must have been like a year or two ago. Before that, I actually experimented with Facebook. But Facebook was, the advantage of Facebook is that many of them are already on Facebook. The disadvantage of Facebook was that I wasn't sure if they wanted to be my friend, okay? And it was troublesome trying to explain to them how to set your privacy levels and stuff like that. And also Facebook didn't have a lot of the features that I needed, like uploading files, for example. I think you can do it now with Box.net or sort of apps that you add on. But if you want to it's not native to the system because Facebook is not meant to be sort of an environment for students really. So when I found Edmodo, I decided that I liked it because it's a lot like Facebook. It's not like Blackboard where you have folders and tabs and, it's more like Facebook where everything gets pushed to the top. So when you go in, you always see the latest at the top, right? And there is no actual tab where, you have a tab for, assignments and a tab for this and a tab for that. And I felt it was quite easy to use. I felt it was easy to use, but as we all know, that may not mean anything to students, as I found out as well this semester. So Edmodo is modeled on Facebook, as you can tell. It calls itself a microblogging kind of a system. Microblogging is like Twitter, if you have heard of Twitter. So you are supposed to be posting sort of short messages. So it's not meant for extended text, although you can have paragraphs and paragraphs. I have done that before. It's meant to be social. So even though you can't really friend your classmates, but as an instructor, you can actually, you can see Linda's name here. So Linda is a fellow teacher on my network, so I can connect. And I can send Linda a request. And so it's a little bit like friending people on Facebook. So you can have a teacher's network. I'll come to that again later. The other thing that I really like about Edmodo is that it auto-refreshes. So it's like Facebook, it's like Twitter, right? There's no need for you to actually hit refresh. I mean, sometimes your computer might be a little bit stubborn and you have to manually refresh, but most of the time, it just refreshes on its own. So you can walk away from the computer and students are entering stuff, and it will just naturally be updated. So I find that very handy as well. And students love that because anything that saves them work is, they like that. Okay, so I think, one last thing is that I also thought that Edmodo would be quite suitable for our students because it was originally conceived as K12 LMS. That's why it doesn't require students to register with email addresses, because in the States, I think in elementary school, students are actually not allowed, not expected to have email addresses. So since our student teachers are going out to primary and secondary schools, I did think that if they liked what they have experienced, they could actually bring this with them to the schools when they got to teach. Yeah, as opposed to Blackboard. Okay, I think I'm ready to start my demo. You can sign up either as teacher or as student, and the group code is this one, ZLVV. Can you all see this?
Excuse me.
Yes?
If we sign up now,
yes.
Just for this workshop,
yep.
Can we sign up again for other purposes?
You can keep your account.
It's a one-time sign up.
Yes, you can keep your account and you can use it for your own classes as a teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you're not in Teams on yours?
No. I wouldn't be able to see it unless you allowed me to.
Okay.
Yeah. ZLVVEV is the code. So if you, it's a code. So if you sign up as a student, they ask you for a group code when you are signing up. If you sign up as a teacher, you don't have to put in your group code at this point, but you do have to put it in order to enter our group after you have signed up. Yeah. It's up to you. You can sign up as both, depending on which side of the picture you want to see today. Yeah. If you sign up as a student, there are certain special powers that you wouldn't have, Yeah. Yeah. But I'll show you all those special powers anyway, so you can play with them when you get back. So if you have signed up as a teacher, after you go in, there is this link on the left that says join. So you click on join and you enter the code.
Welcome to Edmodo.
Yeah.
Now.
So do you see this group? It's called NIE Instructors Sandbox. Yeah. So, yeah.
Where's the code? CL.
I think I should say that if you have signed up as a student and you're going to use it as a teacher later on, you would need a new account, I think. I don't think you can be student and teacher at the same time. Yeah. But what I do is that I use my personal email for being a student, and then my work email for being a teacher. So I have two accounts. You can do that as well. Then you can kind of see both sides, just to check what your students would see. But for
standardizing, so we see the same screen. My screen is different from yours now.
oh, so what do you see? Sorry. You won't see exactly the same because I have other classes. Yeah, so you should be able, at least the center part should be the same. The center portion should be the same. This part here. Yeah, this part should be the same. You wouldn't see these because these are my existing classes. You're not the teacher of those classes, so you wouldn't be able to see them. Yeah.
Which one should I use?
No, you don't have to do anything now. You don't have to do anything now. Once you're in the sandbox, there's no need to go any further until I continue. So is everybody in the sandbox? Okay. So you're free to do anything in the sandbox. That's why it's called a sandbox. And as I explain what I've done with my classes today, maybe that might give you some ideas of what you could do with your classes. All right. So as I explained before, you're not going to see exactly what I see because I have a lot of stuff from my existing classes. But you should at least see these posts here, which I've put up, okay, including the evaluation form, which I'm supposed to ask you to fill in at the end of today's session. Okay. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is the mobile access. So, are any of you using smartphones? iPhone, Android, any other smartphone that's web?
Dumb phone.
A dumb phone, okay. Well, then this doesn't really apply to you. But if you have a phone that can go on the web, you can get on Edmodo, right? If you have iPhone or Android, you can actually download and install the app. If you are not using one of these two kinds of phones, there is a web, sort of mobile-friendly version of Edmodo. So this is the link. But when you surf to www.edmodo.com, it will automatically redirect you to the mobile site. This is the, okay, if you, any Android users here? No? I feel so lonely. Okay, if you're an Android user, you'll know what this is. This is a QR code. This is how Android users sort of quickly find the apps that they want, right? I'm not going to explain this further because if you are familiar with it, you are. If you aren't, then it doesn't really matter. So that's one thing that is really nice, and I think students who have smartphones, they like that idea as well. Okay. So once you are in, if you are in as a teacher, you would see when you mouse over the course name on the left side. If you have gone in as a student, you wouldn't see this, but that's okay. You can play with it, you know, later on. The first link that you see when you mouse over is settings. Okay. And here you can see the name of the group, which has to be unique. There is a group code which you can reset. If you have decided that you don't want any more students to come in, change the group code and they wouldn't be able to come in any longer. Yeah. And you can set other things like grades and stuff. Then you have members. Okay, so your names should be here. Some of you are teacher members, some of you are students. So what I can do as the owner of this group is that I can make the teacher members co-teachers. So you can co-teach a class. So I'll just very quickly make every teacher a co-teacher. And if your neighbor happens to be a co-teacher, then you can look over to your neighbor's screen and see something different if you have gone in as a student. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, there's no need to save. It saves automatically. And also on the left here, you see that you can create small groups, right? So if you want your class to be working on sort of group projects, you can create small groups. One, okay, save. And you come to this screen, right, where you can sort of, okay, so teachers will be naturally part of the small group because teachers need access to every small group. But the students, you can now reassign the students to small groups. So what I did this semester was that I had a course group for students from the same course, and then I separated them into TGs. Okay? Now the advantage of that is that you don't have to post individually to each TG. But the disadvantage of that is that you have to manually, group the students, which I've actually found a little tedious. So you might not want to do that. You might want to set a separate group for every TG instead of having one giant TG. I mean, next semester, I'm going to have 3 TGs for the same course. So I don't think I'll try this again because I can't imagine having to sort out, 30 over students into 3 groups. Yeah. A student can belong to more than one small group at the same time. So you could have different groups. So if you imagine in a K-12 situation, you might have students in different groups for different subjects. So that's fine. No problems with that. And here, let me just go back to this. You can actually reset passwords for students. So as we know, students sometimes forget. And if they do forget, you may want to tell them not to re-register because then you get a double entry for that student. So you might tell them that you can actually reset the password on your side. So what I normally do is I do it in class. I ask the student to come to the front, and I turn off the projector, I make it blank, I turn away, and I allow the student to enter the password on the spot. So that's a lot faster. Okay, so that's members. Before I go to the next part, can I ask, how many of you are familiar with RSS? RSS? Okay. If you are familiar with RSS, then you'll understand what I'm going to talk about next. If you're not, don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a convenience for those who are familiar with RSS and rely a lot on RSS to keep yourselves updated. So there are 2 ways to use RSS on Edmodo. The first is to import a feed. So here you can see the post with this symbol. Can you see that on your screen as well? This is kind of like the universal symbol for RSS feeds. So what I've done is that I've imported the feed from Edmodo's own blog. This is a blog where the developers update Edmodo, sort of changes to the system. So you can see that, the latest one, by popular demand, delete submitted assignments is back. So it's an update from the people who develop Edmodo. So you can import any feed you like. If you have a class blog, you can import the feed from the class blog. So whenever you update or your students update the class blog, this naturally sort of feeds into the updates. And everybody who is on this group will see that the blog has been updated. All right. How do you add this feed is to go to, if you're a teacher, you can go to feeds. When you mouse over, and you can add feeds. Just add the feed address. Right? If you are familiar with RSS, you'll know what a feed address typically looks like. Okay. That's one thing. So feeds going in, but you can have a feed coming out as well. So for instance, one example is in a K-12 situation where you want parents of the kids to be updated on stuff that you have done with the kids, you can make certain posts public, right? So if you scroll down, you can see that I have made some posts public. This is not very difficult. You just have to go to the bottom of each post and you click on public like this. Okay, and it becomes public. So how can you see what's public? Again, you mouse over. Sorry. Let's see. Why is it not coming out? Okay, you mouse over and you click on public if you're a teacher, and you'll be able to see what's public. So let's say if you're a parent or you are an external observer and you want to see what's public, you can simply subscribe to this feed. So if you are a Google Reader user, this is what it looks like on your Google Reader. So, you know, for tech-savvy parents, you know, who subscribe to blogs and other RSS feeds, they can very easily sort of keep updated on what their kids are doing. Probably not so useful for our student teachers because I can't really imagine a situation where, I mean, if I wanted to show what was going on in my class to a fellow lecturer, I could always add that person as a teacher member or a co-teacher. So in our situation, I don't know, I haven't thought of a use for this purpose, but it can be done for, you know, kids, where you want the public to have access to certain things. Or maybe if you find that your students' work is really exemplary, right, and you want to open it up to the whole world, you can make it public. Some people who use social media disapprove of having everything locked in. You know, they want their students to have a real audience. So in cases like that, you might want to make something completely public and invite real audiences to come and take a look. Okay, so that's RSS. Okay, I'm a little lost, sorry. Let's see. Okay, the next function I want to talk about is tagging. Starting to sound a bit repetitive. How many of you are familiar with tagging? Tagging? They're a bit like folders, but in the old-fashioned folders, you can only put a file in one folder because it's like a physical file. If you put it in one folder, you can't actually put it in another folder at the same time. But with tags, it's like a tag that you've tied onto the file. So you can have multiple tags for the same item. So this is useful because it has no folders. The system has no folders, which could irritate some people who are used to the ideas of folders. But you can have tags. Okay? So the tags are on the right side of your screen. For those of you who are in as students, can you please click on Shared? Okay, let me see. Okay, all right. It's a bit strange. When you click on Shared, do you see a tag called CEL sharing? Yes? Yes? Do you see this one? You should be able to see this one. Sorry, this one. Because I've shared it with everybody. Okay? So I, as a teacher, when I click on it, I see all the posts that I've made that are tagged with this tag, right? And you can try the same thing. You can click on it, and it filters the posts. Does it work for you? Click on Shared, and then click on CEL Sharing. Now, the funny thing is this. On your side as a student, you will not see the tag under the post, but your post will be filtered. Now, this really drove me crazy when I was using this with my students because I just did not get the logic. Why is it that they can filter using that tag, but they can't actually see the tag under each post? And I finally figured that there is a sort of reason to their madness because they want everybody to have their own tagging system. So students can actually come up with their own tagging system and choose to share it. I still feel that it's a little clumsy, and it's one of the drawbacks that I was going to talk about under limitations, but I think it's good to let you know now. Okay? You can filter, you just cannot see the actual tag under each post. If you've decided to not filter, sort of unfilter, the way to unfilter is to close tag. Here. So if you click on close tag, the filtering goes away. So one of the uses of tags is that I've used tags to, I don't have a really standard way of using tags. I'm actually very bad with tagging. I don't have a systematic way of tagging. I think most people are like that. But I think for next semester, I'm going to tag by topics because I think that maybe makes a bit more sense because usually we organize our files according to folders that are sort of under topics. So if we pretend that tags are folders, topics might make a bit more sense than the haphazard tagging that I've done. So you can experiment with, The important thing to remember is that there's no limit to the number of tags that each post can have. It's the same as your small groups, right? You can have multiple, okay? As long as it makes organization easy for you. So that's tags. Any questions so far? You probably have a lot, but might be a bit difficult to ask, but it's okay. You can always ask me via our group after today's session. I'll try my best to answer to the best of my ability. And also, if you scroll down to sort of halfway down your page, you'll see I have a whole column of links. These are all the help resources by the Edmodo team. So this is another reason why I really like Edmodo, because I find that the support system is very extensive. They've got a blog, they've got communities that you can join, like if you're a maths teacher or if you're a language arts teacher, you can have like little groups, PLNs. There's a Facebook page, there's a Twitter account that you can follow if you're on Twitter. There's a guide that is actually quite comprehensive, so you can go in and take a look. There's a help center, and there are also lots of videos that are done by teachers, real teachers using Edmodo in their classrooms. So I think that the support system is quite extensive. And also, if you look at, if you're a teacher, and if you look at communities, there's actually a support group that all teachers are automatically able to join. And you can ask questions, and your questions will either be answered by the Edmodo team, or it may be answered by other teachers who have found out the answer themselves. So it's kind of like a forum that you can go to. And I find the responses quite fast. Within a day, you can usually get an answer. And if there are certain things that you just can't get to work, those people who are part of the team can usually fiddle with it, on the back end and solve the problem for you. So that's the support. Now I'm going to go to this at the top here. So let's start with calendar. Your calendar will be blank because I haven't entered any dates, I think. Okay, but as you can see on my screen, I've got I've got things in different colors. They are color coded according to the course. So blue is, I think it's the general color. Purple is actually my DUE TG, which some of you from ELL will know it's pedagogical grammar. And green is actually DLK, which is a CST course. And you can filter the calendar just like you filter posts. You can jump. It's a bit like Google Calendar. You can jump to different months. You can jump to today. You can print it out, and you can export it. If you want to export it and use it on a different system, you can export it. Okay, so that's calendar. And then you have a gradebook. I don't find gradebook very useful for NIE because we have separate official gradebooks. So I don't find it very useful. But if you set assignments that you give grades to, it will appear on your gradebook. So for instance, I set my DLK classes an assignment, but I didn't ask them to actually submit it online. So if they had submitted online, I'll be able to see a summary of all the grades. I'll talk more about grades later, and you can export this as well. And then the next link that you see is library. The library consists of all the files and links that you have ever uploaded. Okay? And there are two ways to upload to the library. You can upload from the library, or if you are uploading as you go along, it will automatically be deposited in the library. All right? So in the library, you can filter as well. You can filter according to folders. These are, it's called folders, but I actually think they're actually more like tags because I think you can have multiple folders, if I'm not mistaken. You can filter according to everything, stuff that I uploaded myself, direct, meaning files that students have sent to you directly. For example, if they're submitting work. Files and links from all the teachers on your network. Stuff that are coming in from students, because students can also send files to the whole class. So different ways to filter out because this library can actually get really messy. So this is one way to kind of filter stuff. The other way to filter stuff is by group here. And you can also filter by file or link. I should say here that link also refers to embed HTML codes. If you are familiar with embedding, that means you don't actually have to visit a different site. You can just sort of stick it onto Edmodo itself. It says link, but you can use most embed HTML codes. If you want to add stuff, you can add it now. So I'm going to add something now just to show you what it's like. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm going to add this link. It's actually an interview with the creator of Edmodo. I'm going to cheat a bit by just... So I click on link, right? And I paste the code in. And if you just click anywhere on the little window, it will fetch the name of that web page. So there's no need to type out the name of the web page unless you want it to have a special name. Otherwise, it will just fetch the default, which saves a lot of time. You add it. and it appears in your library. So once it's in your library, you can add it to a folder. So you highlight it, and you can add it to, I'll add it to my Edmodo folder because I'm using it for this session. Right? You can launch it. You can launch the website. So if you click on launch, it comes out, you know, the website itself is launched. Let's say if it's something that is embedded. Let me see if I can find something that's embedded. Okay, this is embedded. This is a PowerPoint that's been embedded. So you can't open it because it's been embedded, but you can view it. So you can view the PowerPoint directly on Edmodo if it's been embedded. Okay. So what next? Okay, next would be your profile. So you can, this one I think all of you should be able to play with because all you have a profile. Okay. And under, oops. Okay, so under your profile, you are able to actually see all your posts, and you can also type a note to your connections. So let's say I've connected with all of you co-teachers here. So we have formed a little network of our own. If I want to communicate with all of you, I can, it's again like Facebook. You can message everybody. You can do all the usual things that you can do with students. But it's a sort of like a staff network. Then under settings, all of you will be able to play with your settings as well. You can upload a picture, or you can choose a default picture. You can choose notification. In the States, people can actually choose text message notifications, which I think is very useful because I found out soon after I trialed Edmodo with my NAFA students, they don't actually check their emails. See, apparently email is an old people thing, right? And teenagers don't check their emails daily, but they are kind of attached to their phones. So I really wish that I could use a text message system with my students because then they have no excuse for, you know, no, I wasn't notified, I didn't get the email, which they often tell me. And there's no way for me to verify, so, you know, it's a bit tricky. Yeah, but unfortunately, no. Yeah. So you can choose what you want to be notified on. You can block connection requests. If you don't want people to connect with you for the staff network, you can block it. You can change your password. You can enter your email address. Fairly straightforward, nothing very complicated here compared to something like Facebook, which is really complicated and messy. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, you have a choice, but I think what happens when you choose it is that they ask you for phone providers, and none of them, I don't see Singtel here. You know. Yeah, it only works in the US, maybe Canada. You know, a lot of these platforms, they're not, in the first, the target market is not really international, it's really American. So, you know, there's no way that you can actually use the text message notification system, unfortunately. I would love it. I mean, a lot of systems are like that. Twitter, for instance, there's no local number, so you can't actually have your text messages going to Twitter unless you were to text to an overseas number, which costs money. Yeah. Okay, that was kind of boring and not very interactive, and I think Pratima promised interactivity, so let's do something a bit interactive. So what I'll do is that I'll be the teacher, okay, and you guys can be the students, and I'm going to post a discussion prompt. And when you see it, can you please post something in reply, all right? Okay, okay, I'm going to just cheat by copying and pasting. So what I do is that I type my note here. It's just a simple text note, no formatting is allowed. And then I type the name of the group. In this case, it's NIE, Instructors Sandbox, right? And then I click send. If you want to get it faster, you might want to hit refresh. Otherwise, it should automatically refresh. Can you see the message on your side? Yep. Can you type a short reply, brief reply, and you see the message? Just click on reply, right? You can see I haven't done anything, but it's refreshed. You should be able to see everybody else's replies as well. Can you see your reply?
No. No.
No, you can't.
I sent in Chinese, so can it be Chinese?
I actually am not sure. I'm not sure if it supports, sorry, I'm not sure if it supports Chinese. If you're a teacher, you can edit other your students' posts or delete your students' posts. But otherwise, you can only edit your own post if you're a student, because they don't allow students to kind of, you know, sabotage their classmates' posts. Yes, it's happened before, accidentally. I just remove them from my class and I make them sign up again. Yeah. You can remove the teacher. I can remove anybody who signs up as long as that person is not the owner. Because I'm the owner. So even if you sign up as a teacher, I can still remove you. Yeah. Okay, so you can continue to play with this later on. I'm just going to move on to links, using links. Okay. So let's say you want to send a link to the whole class. So I'm going to now send out a link. No, sorry. I've already uploaded it earlier. Okay, something I've done earlier. So I click on library. So let me do that again. I click on library, right? And the library window pops up, and I can see everything I've uploaded. I click on Edmodo because that's where the folder that I use. And I'm going to upload 2 links. The first one is the link to today's meet. It's a back channel website for those of you who want your students to ask you questions online. Kind of like a chat room, right? So I can add as many links or files as I want. So I'm going to add in another one. This one is for, sorry, I keep clicking wrong. This is for those of you who have Twitter, right? Just out of curiosity, how many of you are on Twitter? Okay, great. So if you're on Twitter, then you'll be able to play with this one. So I'm going to send you these 2 links. Oops. Something wrong here. And I can have a note as well to explain what my links are. These are back channels. And I send. And you can see that when the link goes up, there's actually a thumbnail. There's a thumbnail. So it's the same as your library. You can see a thumbnail. So you can kind of, if you've forgotten what this is, looking at the thumbnail may remind you, why you wanted your students to have it. Yeah. So I'm not going to explain today's Meet because it's basically just a chat room that you can set up. And I use it with my students because there's no need to register. Yeah, there's no need to register. So if you follow the today's Meet, you can just put in your name, join, and you can start chatting immediately. So hi. Right. So I use this when I'm explaining stuff. If students want to ask me questions, but they don't want to interrupt me or they're shy or whatever, they just ask on this little room here. And I go back to the questions later. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it's basically just a means of students to feedback as the lesson is going on. Another way to back channel, if you have forced your students onto Twitter, which I plan to do next semester, wish me luck. Because I had a lot of trouble. But I really believe that Twitter it's a very powerful tool for their professional development as well, which is why I want to force them. I'm sure I'll meet with a lot of resistance. So if you're on Twitter and you follow this link and you sign in, you'll be able to get onto TweetChat. And TweetChat is good because the hashtagging is automatic. If you are familiar with Twitter, you will understand hashtagging. So this is sort of automatic. Pratima, you're so fast. Okay. So you see Pratima has already, and she didn't need to type in the hashtag because it's hashtag automatically if you post from TweetChat. Okay. So you can continue to, chat on one of these two channels as I continue. And I promise I'll go back to them at the end, and I will look at your questions. All right? So that's uploading links. You can also upload, OK, so earlier on I talked about embedding as well as links. So when do I use links and when do I use embedding? I use embedding when I don't need a large screen to show students something. Right? And I know students are lazy to go to another window. So I embed it. So let me show you an example. I'm going to embed, let's see. Okay, I'm going to embed the PowerPoint that I showed you earlier in the library. So I was going to use this PowerPoint, but I realized that it's just a waste of time, and we are kind of short of time, so never mind. It's just a series of slides from my real classes, because you have no access to my real classes. So from the PowerPoint, you can actually see screen captures from real interaction. So you should be able to see an embedded Google presentation on your side. Go through my slides directly. And students really like this because they're lazy, as I said. Well, maybe I shouldn't be too harsh. I'm lazy too. So I like it when things are embedded and I don't have to open a new window. But of course, embedding tends to work better when they are not required to log in. Yeah. Just logging in, then there's another step, and they must well open a new window. And you can embed all kinds of stuff. A lot of the Web 2.0 services allow embedding of some sort. So I'm going to embed another, let's see, I will embed, let me see, should I embed? I'll embed a voice thread. Have you used voice thread before, any of you? If you've used voice thread, oh, this is an old voice thread that was done by the Edmodo people, so it's severely outdated, but it's good because then you can see what a voice thread will look like after it's gone up. I will also embed, let me see. Okay, sorry. I've got too much stuff, so. Okay, I'll embed a Prezi, for those of you who are familiar with this alternative to PowerPoint. Okay, so. Oops, sorry. Okay, and send it to you. All right, so if you refresh, you should be able to see two things embedded. One is a voice thread, and the other one is a Prezi. So you can play both things directly from Edmodo without having to open a separate window. This is really, I find the embed feature for Edmodo really powerful because not all systems of this kind are so embed friendly. A lot of systems only allow certain kinds of scripts, embed scripts, which is really annoying because I'm not a computer programmer. I don't really understand scripts. I just know there are different kinds. So I can never tell which is acceptable and which is not. For Edmodo, not all, but most will work. And I find that very convenient. All right, so that's embedding. Other stuff that I don't embed is stuff where I require the students to be able to see like a big screen, you know, because this is fine because it's small, but if it's big, then it's a bit tricky. I'll give you an example here. Okay, so those of you who were here last week with Sally, you'll be familiar with Lino. So if you like Lino, I like Lino too. She was the one who introduced me to Lino. And, but Lino, it's a board. So I find that if it's restricted to a small window, it's really difficult for students to see everybody else's stickies. So I prefer to, you know, just send them a link. These are boards. So you should be able to see thumbnails again. Wall Wisher is very similar to Lino. It works a little bit differently. It's not as colorful. It doesn't support Chinese. But you can play with it. So if you want, you can go in there now and you can start leaving me messages. Okay, feedback, questions, anything. When you are in the box at the top, instead of choosing note, you choose poll, and then you type in a question, then you just add all the available answers, right? Just add all the available answers, and then you send it to the group that you want to poll. So I've used it for stuff like, do you have a smartphone? Surprisingly, many of them don't. For example, email notification, because many of them claim that it didn't work for them despite, you know, tweaking the settings. So I had a little poll just to check how many of them have problems with the notifications. You can poll whatever you like. It's a quick and easy way of polling. If you want more complex polling, or if you want to set a quiz, what I do is usually use a separate quiz system. I haven't done one for today, but one that I have done previously, oops, let me see. If you have gone through my slideshow, let me show you an example. Okay, this is actually a survey. Okay, this one. This is a service called My Studio. It's one of the many quiz services that are available. So all you have to do is to set up your quiz. You get the embed code. You put it into your, just like embedding the other stuff that we did before. Just embed it in, and they can answer directly on Edmodo. So you can create quizzes.